Hey guys, it's Big Mike here, and I'm here with WWE's referee, lifelong wrestling extraordinaire, Scott Armstrong, here with the brand new Armstrong Avenue podcast. How's it going, brother?
Big Mike, what's up, man?
Oh
All is
man,
well in the Armstrong Avenue.
I hear you, man. I hear you, man. This is great, man. I'm really excited to get this thing off the ground and rolling because this is going to be a lot of fun for me, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for you
Oh,
being able
definitely, yeah,
to
definitely.
to revisit some of the things that have happened in your career, and that's what this is going to be about. So, real quick, just to tell our listeners and fans and friends, family, everybody listening in, what this is about. So, Armstrong Avenue was a podcast that I brought to Scott and said, "Hey, man, I think this is going to work. I think you've got something here. Podcasting is huge. I've been in the podcast business for over a year myself, and it's just a great way to get your message out and your stories out, and to engage with listeners in a way that wasn't able to do 20 years ago.
So true, so true. I couldn't even 20 years ago. I couldn't even call home.
20
Yeah.
20 20 years ago, I don't think I could walk. No, I could walk. I could
Oh, you're
walk.
killing me.
I was
You ki- you're
I could
killing me,
walk.
Mike.
I was 8 years old then, 20 years ago.
All right.
but
Uh,
uh but no, man, this is going to be a lot of fun. I hope the listeners are going to enjoy it. So what are you looking forward to do with the podcast, bro?
well, so I did my brother's podcast, the "Oh You Didn't Know"
Yep.
podcast, and so he just called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, man, you want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, whatever." And so then after I did it, I got a whole lot of feedback. A lot of my friends that were from the WWE and old friends too got in touch with me and said, "Oh man, you got stories. How are you not telling them?" And so I called my brother back and said, "Hey, I'm getting a lot of good feedback." And he said, "Yeah, we got a lot of good feedback from your appearance too." So I'll say, "Well, yeah, you want to do another show?" He goes, "No, you already did it. Do your own." And I said, "Okay." So I didn't really take that any further until I ran into you and we met. And when you brought it to me, it was like, here it is, and it just did that. And it was the perfect timing, which anybody that's ever been in the sports entertainment industry knows it's all about timing. And that's just the truth. Right place, right time, and you get a job and good things happen. And you just can't rush it. So I didn't rush it, and here we are. And look, I started wrestling when I was 22, and I'm 61. So I've got a couple of stories. So that's what I hope to accomplish with this podcast is just share the stories and the good times and the fun, and it's going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. It is going to be a lot of fun. So you just said you started wrestling in your early 20s.
Yes,
So
22 years old.
22 years old, you're 61 now. That is, I'm terrible at math. 30 30 some years?
30. Yeah, let's say
30
it that way. 30,
30
30
years? 30,
something.
30 plus years in the business.
Yes.
That's a long time,
Uh,
man.
it has been a long time. It's next year will be 40 years, and so
40 years.
it's you don't think about it because look, I always my son's the same age as you, Big Mike, and so he always said that he said, yeah, a lot of my friends' dads they're not like you, and I would always start laughing because I felt very fortunate to be um, in locker rooms with guys that were half my age, and they're all talking smack like they're the ones that invented it, and I'd already heard it for the last 20 years, 30 years. But you don't speak up; you just enjoy hearing them talk to all the Gaga, and that's what I did, and it just keeps your mind young. Look, chronologically, physically, I'm about 118 years old. I've been beat up and slammed, and you know the deal. That just comes with the game, and but to have been in locker rooms with young people, because young people will keep your mind young. I don't care how old you are. And the sad thing is a lot of times older people They get older and they just get set in their ways and they don't want change. And look, the wrestling industry is change. That's exactly what it is. I saw a guy the other day and he was about my age and he said, "Oh, this stuff today, it just ain't like it used to be." And I said, "No, it's not. And it shouldn't be. It should evolve." Because in my dad's day, I watched him have a 2 out of 3 in the territory days. I watched him have a 2 out of 3 falls for the World Heavyweight Championship against Dory Funk Jr. Now, Dory Funk was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and it was huge. My dad was top babyface in Georgia, and it was huge for him to get the opportunity to wrestle him, and they ended up having a 2 out of 3 falls match. And in the first fall, Dory Funk beat him, and everybody was like, "Oh, he's doomed," and blah, blah, blah. And so then the second fall, now this was the finish of the match. My dad and they worked a headlock, and he had the headlock on Dory Funk, and they would hit the ropes and come back off, and he'd grab the headlock. And then at the end, he just let it go and hit the ropes and hit a big elbow. 1, 2, 3. Now you're talking, I was 12 years old. So you're talking 1972. Now fast forward to 2022, 50 years later. And when you see a match like that, within the first 2 minutes, you get boring. And it's because whether you like it or whether you don't like it, the wrestling industry has evolved. To some people, they say, "Oh, no, it hasn't evolved, it's devolved." No, it hasn't. Look, I want to see Mustafa Ali jump off the top rope and do a 1.5, or Ricochet do some of his top rope stuff. I want to see that as much as anybody. But you talk to some old timers and they go, "Yeah, that stuff." I disagree. I love it. I love to see guys have a great match, tell a good story, and do some of their high flying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way that wrestling, like you said, has evolved over the years. To me, I grew up watching wrestling in the 2000s, early 2000s, and it became more or less all about the bigger guys, the power guys. Batista, John Cena was the guys that everybody wanted to see, but my favorite all-time wrestler was Edge. I loved watching Edge, and it wasn't because he was the power guy. It was more he was a wrestler to me.
Yes. Yeah, it was great. He still is. He can still go. And I think he's what, 82? No, I really don't know how old he is. I know he can go. Hey, I'll tell you. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. How old
I
is
think
he?
he's in his late 30s, 40, maybe 42.
Yeah,
I think.
I don't have a clue, but I know he could go, and he told great stories. And look, when he was a heel and people cheered him, if he did a move and the fans cheered the move, he just wouldn't do it again. He was a heel. He was great. He was good in the ring. Let me tell you a quick story about him because you brought him up, and I know this is going off of what we were going to talk about. But so we had a show in San Diego, and that's where Rey Mysterio lives. And so I forget where the show was the night before, but it was like a 4-hour drive. And so he said, "Hey, you want to just?" It was just he and I traveling together, Edge, and he said, "Hey, you want to stay over here and get up in the morning, and we'll drive to San Diego?" Yeah, sure. So we do the show wherever the town was and spend the night. We get up the next morning. He goes, "Hey, you want to go to the gym, or do you want to drive on our 4-hour drive? Do you want to find a gym, get a workout, break up the drive?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds awesome." And so we do that, and we're driving. We get the workout. We get back in the car. Well, you get your blood pumping in the gym. You feel good. And he goes, "Man, now we're in the desert, California, driving." And he says, "How cool would it be if we were to come up on a place that rented quads and we could just ride quads out in the sand?" And I started laughing because at this time, I'm already probably 47 years old. But look, still young at heart. And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Dude, that would be awesome. I would love that." And he said, "Would you do it?" And I said, "Yes, I would." We went 5 more minutes and came around a curve, and there's an 18-wheeler that's probably been sitting there since the beginning of time, rusted out, but it had a big, huge banner going across that said Quad Runner Rentals here. And I was driving, I just hit the brakes, and he starts holding on. Oh my God. And he didn't see the sign, and I did. And I started, he was going, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, read that sign, dude. And he went, oh my God, are you serious? I said, let's do it. And so we get out. At that time, he was the world champion. And so, excuse me, we get out of the car, and the girl that's renting the quads literally goes, oh my God, you're Edge. And he said, yes, I am. And she goes, oh my gosh, you guys, she said, you can ride as long as you want to. And we just looked at each other and started. So this started in the car, just two dudes BSing. And now we actually have come up on this place, and it's just a freebie. And he said, can we take our shirts off? Because the sun in California and you're the sand and, quad runners. And she goes, yes, you can. And so we both take our shirts off. We rode until we just didn't want to be on one anymore. We had a blast. And so we get back in the car, and it's like, we're sweaty and sandy, and we just couldn't believe that had just happened. Well, kind of a damper on the story, but it'll play into how I started with Rey Mysterio, is we get to the town. I've already refereed. I was the ref. I had probably 4 matches that night. I'd already done 3 of them. I didn't have Edge's match that night. And then all of a sudden, somebody comes to the back and goes, hey, where's the doc? We need the doc right now. And Edge had tore his Achilles in the match. The match had stopped. And so they go get him. Well, I still had another match to referee. I couldn't take him to the hospital, but Edge was the one that had got the rental car. And Tommy Dreamer said, I'll take him to the hospital. Well, they disappear, and the next morning I'm flying out of San Diego, and I literally had no car, no anything. And Rey Mysterio, honestly, truly, one of the sweetest human beings you will ever meet. And I would say that, I'm saying it behind his back, but I'd say it to his face. One of the kindest, sweetest human beings ever. He said, Scotty, I got you. Don't worry about it. I said, no, I got to get a hotel. And he said, no, I got you. Don't worry about it. I said, yeah, but he was done for the night. I said, I still got another match, and I got to get a cab. And he said, Scotty, I got you. And sure enough, he waited. And when I was done, we got in his car and we drove. I don't know, he lived about a half hour away. And I told him straight up, I said, Ray, what's your address? I'm going to call a cab because my flight's at like 5:30 in the morning. Well, it's already midnight. And he goes, I'm not letting you take a cab, man. And I said, Ray, you're home. You are climbing into your own bed. That doesn't happen very often in our line of work. It just doesn't. And I said, let me go ahead and call the cab. I'll go ahead and schedule it. They'll pick me up, at 4:30 or whatever. And he said, no, I'll wake you up. I got you. That guy literally, he had a guest. Ray's been good with his money. God bless his heart. And he had a guest house. And so I stayed in his guest house, and then and on his property. And then all of a sudden he starts knocking on the door and goes, all right, come on, old man, get ready. Let's go. And then he drove me like a half hour to the airport and dropped me off. I'll never forget that. I'm so glad that I know we didn't talk about me telling any of this story, and I'm so glad that we did, so that I can give him public praise, because he is a good human being. His entire family have always been so sweet and nice to me and my family, and I'll always appreciate his friendship. Anyway, I know that was a little off the beaten path.
No. That's what that's what podcasting is, man. Following a script doesn't work for me, because I'll get to rambling about things, but that's what I love about it, is that you were able to tell that story and I was able to hear it, because that's an awesome story.
Yeah,
It was an
it was
awesome
really
moment.
cool. Look, you brought up Edge,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he one time we were in oh gosh, I think it was a Virginia town, and I was the referee. And it was the main event. It was him versus I forget who it was now, but anyway, he was the heel and he was the champion. So the match is over, and I'm still in the ring, and he starts, poking the referee in the chest, and the people aren't leaving. And he said, "Give me that beautiful." He said, "Duck my clothesline and give me that beautiful drop kick." And I went, "Oh no, no, no." Well, Dean Malenko was the producer of the show, and I knew that was going to be real heat. If the referee, you don't do that to the world champion. You don't hit a wrestler at all. Wrestlers aren't supposed to hit you. And I said, "No, no, man, I'm not going to." And all of a sudden, he just started hitting me and hitting me and hitting me all the way up against the ropes, and then shot me off. And I ducked the clothesline and gave him the drop kick, and the people went crazy, of course, because referees don't do that. And oh my God, the ass chewing I got when we got back. Oh, Dean was hot. And he said,
Oh,
as a producer, they do a report every night on all
mhm.
the matches and how the show went. And when people act a fool, you have to put that in a report. And I remember Dean going, "What am I supposed to say in the report about that? You got to be kidding." I mean, he was ticked, and I hated that because I love Dean Malenko. Oh man, he's a good dude. But
that
that's Edge,
that's
man.
a that's a phenomenal story.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't get me in any kind of trouble now
Oh man.
with Edge or Dean. Uh,
Oh man, Edge is doing some great things at his age right now. I think he's in the best shape of his life.
yeah,
In my
it is. It's literally the ability to evolve. It is. He's changed himself. He's changed his character. Hey man, look, at the end of the day, you got to know where the world's going. And I was never good at that. God just blessed me with in-ring talent. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I was super talented in the ring. I could just adapt to what other people could do or couldn't
Mhm.
do. You know what I mean? And that's what working is. And so, and it's working no matter what job you have. You know what I mean? If if you and I are tag team partners and you aren't good at high flying, I'll do the high flying. You just adapt to make the team work. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that's what Edge has always been able to do. And hey, his wife Beth Phoenix too, just super talented couple
Yeah. Yep. That's good.
and
So
great people.
yeah, yeah. I've like I said, been a fan of Edge my entire life, and when he came back at the Royal Rumble, I marked out, as people would say.
Hey, we're all marks, dude. I don't care what anybody says.
Yep, yep.
We are.
So I love it, and I love seeing what he's doing now. But back to your start in wrestling when you were 22 years old. Tell us how that came about. How did you get into the wrestling business and evolve into the son of Bullet Bob Armstrong to where you're at now?
Well,
As
no doubt about it, very huge footprints to step into. Huge. And so I just always wanted to wrestle when I was a little bitty kid. I wanted to wrestle like my dad did. I loved going to the shows. I loved being a fan. It's like you said I marked out, and I said we're all marks, and we are. Wrestlers marks for what they do. They are. They can say I'm not a mark. Whatever, dude. I don't. You do you, but you're a mark because you love it. And look at it's being a mark's not a bad thing. I'm telling you right now. I'm a mark for rap music. I love rap music. I love to hear it. I do, and I know people go. My son, especially, he's your age, Mike, 28, and he always starts. He'll shoot me a text of something that just came out, or hey, we watched a documentary on Juice World. Anyway, I'm getting way off the beaten path. But I always wanted to wrestle from when I was a young kid, and I was the only of the four sons, I think, that said I want to be a wrestler. And I was tiny, skinny. In high school, I always said I wanted to be a wrestler. And, all my buddies knew my dad was Bob Armstrong, and they would. I got just picked on and ribbed and bullied and everything that comes with being a high school kid that's about 145 pounds
Yeah.
and big around as a toothpick and telling everybody, oh yeah, I'm going to be a professional wrestler. And, because back then you had to be like you were just talking about when you started watching, you had to be a big guy to kind of do it. And small guys just didn't do it. And thank goodness in the South, it was a little more forgiving in the territory days. Uh, Size was kind of forgiven. If you had fire and personality, you got by. And that's what I tried to have was fire and personality. But anyway, I told this story on my brother's podcast. So to those of you that had seen this, I apologize for hearing it twice. But I just always wanted to do it. And so when Brad started wrestling, he was 18 and 3 weeks out of high school. And so I started I lived in Kennesaw, Georgia, going to what is now Kennesaw College. Back then it was Kennesaw Junior College. And I was going there, and I would drive. My brother Brad would have a match in Montgomery, and Montgomery was halfway to Pensacola. Pensacola is where my family had moved to. And I stayed in Kennesaw I was going to college. And so I would drive to Montgomery and watch Brad wrestle, about a 2.5 hour drive with my dad too. And I'd get to see him and, send my mom would always send goodies or whatever. And so, anyway, finally I had spring break in college up there, and my dad said, yeah, come down to here and stay with us for, your 2 weeks or whatever. So I did. And so I get down here, and their routine was they would get up in the morning, go to the gym. Then from the gym, they would go to the beach and then go back to the house, eat. They would jump in the shower and pack their bag and then go to the town. And so after a couple, I would go with them if it was close. Mobile's an hour from Pensacola or whatever. But anyway, I would go with them if it was close. But if it wasn't, I'd stay there with my mom and my brothers, Steve and Brian, Road Dog. And so I remember after a couple of days of doing this with my dad and Brad, I said, Dad, do y'all do this every day? And he said, yeah, isn't it great? I said, yes, it is. And he said, well, son, they have colleges down here too. You don't have to stay up there. You can move back down here with us. And look, I was 19, and when you're 19, living away from the family, it was really cool. I mean, it was, you're 19. You want to get away from everything. But when you come down here and you see the solid sugar white sand of Pensacola Beach, and you see that, man, starting from March to like October, it's just beautiful weather and you can walk on the beach. And it was just really appetizing, all of it. And I went back after that 2 weeks. I sold everything, I sold everything I had and moved to Pensacola. And I'm 61. I'm still here. And
Man,
so
you never left.
never left. I've literally been fortunate enough to stay here, raise a family, and make a living, and have a home. And it's heaven, man. It is. It's heaven. But that's literally how it started. I told my dad I'll never forget riding. We were riding to a town to wrestle, and it was my first match. Oh, it was Dothan, Alabama. I'll tell you that right now. Dothan, Alabama, Houston County Farm Center every Saturday night, territory days. And so I remember saying, Dad, you have any advice for me? Is there anything that you can tell me? He said, yeah, I was in a tag match with my brother Brad, and he said, yeah, just stand on the apron and watch your brother. and honestly, Brad was smooth as silk, and he was great in the ring. His timing was impeccable, and he just that's what I did. I literally watched Brad, just poetry in the ring, and I just watched him and tried to, I had a lot of help from a lot of people that we wrestled against, because I literally was so green. I had no clue. I'd watched my dad my whole life and watched wrestling my whole life, but there's nothing like getting in front of 3,000 or 4,000 people at that time and doing what you just knew you wanted so bad. And I always think about the my very first time ever being seen in a ring was in Dothan, Houston County Farnham Center. My dad was heel at the time, and Brad was a babyface. And so the Midnight Express, they're just beating Brad to death. And my big chance to start in the business was to hit the ring with a kendo stick and beat all three guys half to death and save my brother. And then the next week on TV, they do oh my gosh, it's Brad Armstrong's brother. It's Scott Armstrong. And then together we say, Midnight Express, we're going to get you. We set it all up. And so I get in that ring and I hit the first one. I hit the second one. I hit the third one, and I spin around to hit them all again. And they were all gone. And I thought I was supposed to hit them all like 3 or 4 times. And so we get back to the back, and look, it's not like now. Now these guys just beat each other to death with a kendo stick. But back then it wasn't that way. You kind of took care of each other. And we get, this is a few nights later, we're in Mobile, Alabama, and the referee says, hey, these guys want to talk to you over in their locker room. And back then you didn't go in their locker room. You didn't do any of that. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And they said, no, they're pretty adamant about you coming over there. I walk in the door and they snag me and start just giving me these tiny little shots with the kendo stick on my arms and legs. And I'm going, hey, come on. Hey, what are you doing? And they said, you feel how bad that hurts? And I said, yes. And they said, so let us teach you how to hit us with those. I said, point taken, guys. I totally understand now. But that's how green I was. I jumped in the ring. Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden used to call me thermometer, because when I got in the ring, I felt it, man, and my face would turn neon red. And when I was in the ring, it'd say, oh, easy thermometer, easy thermometer. Oh, man, I miss those days. I miss them. They were a lot of fun. But anyway, 22, 23 years old, just living the dream, man. Just literally living the dream and living on the beach while doing it. You can't write it. You know what I mean?
No, you can't. That sounds like a lot of fun to me.
It was.
That's crazy. So moving from there, you spent some years doing that, and then you ended up in Smoky Mountain. Tell me a little bit about that.
So Smoky Mountain was that was Jim Cornette. It was all Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette always had a great relationship with my dad, my entire family, and still do. I still have a good relationship with him. And he just came up and said he's starting his own thing, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and would we be interested? And he had talked to my dad very in depth about it, and then he said he wanted to make my dad the commissioner, and said, Scott, you come in as Scott Armstrong, and then I have an idea for you. Because I told him when he was starting Smoky Mountain, I said, Jimmy, I got a deal going to Japan. And this was, I want to say 91. And I said, I got a deal going to Japan for a month. And he said, well, then the idea I have, that works perfect. So I was able to be on like the first 4 shows of Smoky Mountain as Scott Armstrong. And then I think Dutch Mantell beat me with his bullwhip, and I disappeared. And I was off of, I think I was gone for 2 months off of that TV show. But so when I called him and said, hey, Jimmy, when do I come back? And he said, so I have an idea. He said, I want to call you. He said, I want you to wear a mask, and I want to call you Dixie Dynamite. And he said, and I said, I don't know. He said, it's, you have the red, white, and blue and the heart of Dixie. And I said, I don't know. He goes, no, you don't understand. The kids are going to love it. We can highlight you. You can, it'll be a kind of a kid's gimmick. And he said, and it will establish you for month after month after month. And he said, and you'll just be getting wins on TV. He said, just that, it's you with a mask, but nobody's going to know it's you. And he said, and this, he back then you could do long-term booking. Now it's kind of hard to do because of injuries and blah, blah. But, and I don't know why not everybody got hurt back then. But anyway, he said, I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and give you the finish of the program. And I said, okay. And literally it was about a year of doing that to then work into, he used my dad as the commissioner the whole time. So and he established my dad as a real authority figure, kind of like they're doing with Adam Pearce now with WWE. And so anyway, he ends up just wanting to get to my dad so bad. My dad went through some of Cornette's men, or not really went through them, but more, putting his thumb down because he was the commissioner. He was Cornette's deal was he was going to, I want it my way. And my dad was, no, you're going to do it the way the company needs you to do it. I'm a company man. And so anyway, at the end, I think it was about a year. At the end, they do a thing where I end up on TV with Cornette face to face, and I take my mask off and say, I'm Scott Armstrong. I'm Bob Armstrong's son. And Cornette goes nuts. And it was really good. I felt it was good. It wouldn't have mattered if it was me under the mask, who it was, just any brother or Bob's son under the mask. It worked. And it did work. And it was fun. And I had a blast doing the Dixie Dynamite. He'd say, hey, we're going to turn all the lights out in the building. We got these big, huge sparklers. Come out with sparklers. And okay. It was a lot of fun because honestly, in Smoky Mountain, they didn't know me. They didn't know Scott Armstrong. I had been, I'd been through the territory days and they didn't know me. They just didn't know me. And so it was really easy to do with the mask. I'd, wear the mask as I pulled up to the arena and do the show. And my aunt, God rest her soul, she got me a baseball hat that had a big smiley face on it. And she made a canvas thing that came down real long. And she sewed in sequins a big smile and with 2 eye holes cut out. So I'd put that baseball cap on to walk in and out of buildings. People would say, who is that? Who is that? They didn't even know it was Dixie Dynamite walking. It's just like some freak with this baseball cap on. She sewed it and I went, this is so perfect. It was great.
That's good stuff. I think I had recently pulled that promo you were talking about towards the end of that finish where Jim Cornette was basically cutting a promo about your dad, and then he said, I'm going to tell everybody right now that his own son is ashamed of him. He has to wear a mask and calls himself Dixie Dynamite. And then you showed up and rip your mask off like you said, and I don't do it because I'm ashamed. I do it because I love my dad. And then your dad comes in and then socks him right upside the head, and Jim sells it like probably one of my favorite personalities to watch was Jim Cornette. Man, he was just funny.
He always
over the top. He's
great. He's great. Look, he got it from a very young age. Cornette understood how this works, and he used it to his advantage. More power to him, really. Yep. He just hit 300,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. So we got a long way to go, Mike.
Hey, Jim, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
We're trying to get there. We'll see what we have by the end of the week.
Yeah, Smoky Mountain, dude, there were a lot of miles in that territory. I mean, a lot, because we were coming from Pensacola. So we would go and be there for like 4 straight days. And it would be from here to I'm in Pensacola now. So from here to Knoxville, about 10 hours. And so, about 8 hours. And then but that's not where all the shows were. They'd be in Wheeling, West Virginia, or Beckley, West Virginia. And I'm gonna tell you something right now. There's no straight roads in West Virginia. They all do that. Everything's a curve. And so we I remember one time we pulled into a little show, and my brakes in the front, and there's just smoke coming out both sides. And I remember one of the boys said, "What an entrance you guys made. You had smoke coming out of your tires and everything." It was an entrance, all right.
Man, that's something, man. So I always thought that it was in Tennessee was where Smoky Mountain was. I didn't realize that it was all over in West Virginia.
Yeah, Kentucky. Oh yeah, yeah. Jellicoe. One time, Jellicoe. So Jellicoe was a mountain. It wasn't that far from Knoxville, but it's a huge mountain. And one time we had a show there, and it's cold, wintertime, and we're way up in the mountains. And being from Pensacola, you don't think about snow. You don't think about that at all. We go in there to wrestle the show. We come out. They got the top of the mountain closed. We couldn't go home. It was only like an hour and a half. And so we ended up having to, and in towns like that, at that time, they rolled up the sidewalks at 9:00, and there was one gas station open. And it was me, my dad, Johnny Rich, Davey Rich, and Doug Furnas. You remember Doug Furnas at all? He was at University of Tennessee, superstar, running back, ended up wrestling, went to Japan, wrestled in Japan a lot. Anyway, it was the five of us in two cars. And so we literally start up that mountain. State troopers go, "No, you can't go. You guys can turn around in the median." Well, it was so deep with snow, we had to walk it. Anyway, we end up getting back to that one gas station that's open. And there's one girl sitting in there. And we said, "Hey, is there any restaurants around here?" She said, "No, everything's closed." And so we said, "Okay, we'll give $50 to you if you can somehow finagle us some kind of dinner, breakfast. We'll pay for the food, we'll pay for everything, and we'll give you $50. And she goes, "Well, can you give me a minute?" And we went, "Yes." And she made a phone call, and she said, "So where y'all going to be?" And we said, "Well, we're going to be at this hotel if they'll let us have a room." There was one hotel in the town. And she said, "Well, where do we bring it?" We said, "We'll meet you in the lobby of that hotel in 1 hour." And that girl showed up. She had woke her mom up, her family. They made a huge breakfast for us at like midnight. Oh my God. I'll never forget that as long as I live. My dad was the happiest man on the planet. Well, all of us were. I mean, biscuits and gravy and scrambled eggs and bacon. Oh, heaven on earth, man. Jellicoe.
Jellicoe.
The crazy stuff that happens on the road.
I would have been in heaven just for biscuits and gravy.
Yeah, it was awesome.
There's nothing better than homemade sausage gravy.
Yeah, no, you're right. I just made it the other day.
Really?
It's heaven.
Man,
it's heaven.
Because a lot of the people who are going to listen knowing me from my podcast know I'm a fireman full time, and so at the firehouse we do a lot of cooking, and one of the things I love to do is homemade sausage gravy.
Yeah.
But everybody gets mad because I like my food hot. I'm a spicy food man.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I use that hot. I'm a spicy sausage, cayenne pepper.
Yeah, no, that's not me, brother. I'd have to have it before you doctored it.
Have to use the mild sausage.
Let me tell you a quick story about Doug Furnas. Now that I've told you about him and you don't know who he is, you'll look him up. And I hope people listening to this podcast will too. So Doug Furnas is like a big, strong man. I mean, he could lift. And so Johnny Rich and Davey Rich and myself, at one time we were known as the three of us were called the Party Boys. And it was for USA Championship Wrestling, which was Ron Fuller's organization. And it was based in Knoxville about 3 or 4 years prior to Jim Cornette coming back there with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And so Doug would do we'd be in the Knoxville Coliseum and he'd squat, whatever however many plates on each side, just strongman stuff. And so we get this call, or me and Johnny and Davey shared a condo, when we were up there. And so we get this phone call to our place, and it's a guy that owns a gym about 40 miles out of Knoxville. And he says, yeah, you guys wrestling here next week? And we just wondered if you'd come by here. And he said, do you know Doug Furnas? And I said, yeah. And he said, so we'll pay all four of you if you'll come do an autograph session and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, okay. So we talk about the dollar figure and all that. And so I tell the boys, and they said, oh, yeah, we're in. And then I tell Doug, and he goes, Scotty, you know what this is about, right? And I said, yeah, it's about us doing an autograph session. He goes, no, it's at a gym. And he said, they don't want to see you guys. I just started laughing. I said, yeah, no, man, it's they're wrestling fans and they want us to come do this thing. He said, no, they don't. And he said, never mind. Yeah, I'll do it with y'all. Well, so we're going to the show anyway. We're just going like 2 hours early. And the guy goes, and we walk in, and there's like, I don't know, 60 or 70 people in this tiny little gym. And they're going, and the guy walks up and goes, hey, which one of y'all did I talk to? And I said, it was me. He says, hey, okay. Hey, where's Doug? And I said, oh, he's in the car. And he said, oh, well, he's not coming in with you guys? And I said, well, let me grab him. So Doug comes in. Now, remember, I told you Doug's big, strong, muscled up. He can lift the house. And he goes, hey, Doug, as soon as Doug walks in, he goes, hey, Doug, how you doing, man? I'm so-and-so. I'm the gym owner. And Doug says, hey, how you doing? And he goes, so our gym bench press record is 510. We were wondering if you could break that record today. And Doug, I mean, without hesitation, looks right at me and said, do you see what I'm talking about now, Scotty? And I went, oh, I was so naive, thinking the guys were all wrestling fans. They didn't care about us. They just wanted Doug to break their gym bench press record. And so I just looked back at Doug and said, well, what are you going to do? Are we going to leave? And he goes, no, I'm going to break the gym bench press record, and then I'm going to cuss you all the way to the building. And so Doug looks at the guy and goes, why don't you settle up with my man Scotty over here on our appearance fee? And then after you do that, let me talk to you over here on the side. So the guy comes over and pays me what we'd talked about on the phone. And then the guy and Doug walk out the front door. So me, Johnny, and Davey are standing there with these, this crowd of people thinking, what's going on? And Doug walks back in and looks at me and Johnny and Davey and goes, okay, guys, put 525 on that thing on the bench. So we start loading the plates. And Doug, without warming up or anything, he was so pissed at me. He just laid down on that bench and went boom, boom, and racked the weight. And the guy came over and shook his hand. When he shook his hand, I noticed he had cash that he put in Doug's hand. Doug had told him, for $500, I'll break your gym record, and then you can tell everybody you know that Doug Furnas came in here and broke your gym record. And the guy went, okay. And so the guy gave him 500 extra bucks. And Doug looked at me and said, I'm never doing an appearance with you again. Oh, man.
That's funny.
He was a good dude.
There's not many people who can just straight drop 525 and just totally throw it right cold up.
Didn't warm up. No, he was just really mad. And you know how it is, man. You get mad about something and it fires you up enough.
Yeah, definitely does. That's crazy. So tell me, man. Tell me more about. I'm losing you. Let's see. I can't hear you at all. Let me see here.
Okay, I can hear you perfect.
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine now.
All right. Yeah, my pods, all of a sudden they died. It was all that stuff we was talking about that we were going to talk about prior to the show starting that we've talked nothing about.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Yep. That's funny. That's funny. Well, technical difficulties. I can edit that out.
good, good.
so so yeah. Going back into to the stories from Smoky Mountain. What happened after you left Smoky Mountain? Where'd you end up?
So I ended up kind of in limbo, just doing independent shows and still working, still wrestling. And then uh, Jody Hamilton, Nick Patrick, the referee, Jody Hamilton, his
Mm,
dad was one of the assassins back in the, you know,
mm,
60s. And so with my dad. And so uh, he had become the guy that got the extra talent for WCW. And so I literally I was just working the indies. And back then, the indies didn't pay like they pay now. And so I, it literally, when people go, they can't identify, but that was like being a struggling actor.
mhm.
Like you waited tables to be able to follow your dream. And except I didn't even have tables to wait. I was just doing nothing but wrestling
Yep.
and not bringing home a ton of money and two small kids. And I'm talking like 4 and 2. And so I called Jody Hamilton. I called him one day and just said, "Hey, dude, I know you're." First, I should say, me and my brothers kind of grew up, not with Nick Patrick, but around him because the heels and the baby faces couldn't talk to each other. You couldn't be seen talking to each other. So my dad was a baby face back in the day, and Jody Hamilton was a heel as the assassin, and they just kept to that. So while I grew up with Nick, and me and Nick are, I think, close to the same age, um, but as we grew up together, seeing each other back, at shows, we didn't get to really know each other until we became adults, and then we got, oh, great, I love him, and so anyway, I as an adult, I really got to know Jody, and so because he came into Continental, he was the Flame, and through fire and all that, and worked with my dad a lot. But anyway, he said I called him and just said, "Hey, I heard you're getting all the talent for WCW, and just wondering if I could come in and do, just be an extra." And he literally said he knew my career. You know what I mean? He knew what I'd done in my career and where I'd been, and and he just said, "Scotty, what I got, you don't want." And I said, "No, I do. I'll do whatever." And he goes, "No, I don't think you understand." He said, "If I bring you in, they're going to beat you on TV in like 4 minutes." And I said, "Well, I don't think you understand. I've got two small children and they don't care where the food comes from. They just want to eat." And he started laughing and said, "Well, I totally understand that." He said, "All right, kid, be here this week at whatever." And that's literally how I started with WCW, and ended up having about a 7 year run there, um, and ended up the last 2 years full contract. I mean, so what started as just getting beat in 4 minutes on TV ended up lasting a really long time. I just did the TV every week. And the funny thing is back then you would do that, we would do the Saturday night show and then we would go to Disney or Universal and we'd be there like 10 days and they would film worldwide, or they had a couple of shows they filmed down there, but you'd be there for 10 days. And I got paid per day. And so they would do 3 shows a day. And so if we did 3 shows a day and I was on the first show, I begged, "Hey, can I be on another show? Because you made extra money." And I
Yeah.
had those 2 kids that were growing up. Look, man, Mike, having small children, that you can't be egotistical about it.
Mm-mm.
They want
Mm-mm.
to eat, they need diapers. So you do what you do as a parent to make sure they have what they need. And that's what I did. And I I loved it because I got to work with everybody. I got to, I mean, I was there when Brian Pillman first came in, when Stone Cold first came in as, stunning Steve Austin. And I mean, And I got the opportunity to work with some really talented. It's where I met Triple H. He was terrorizing, and I mean, really talented young dudes that were just really getting their foot in the business and getting their first real opportunity to do anything on television and end up being stars. And just that lasted a good while till the last 2 years. I think it was Kevin Nash got the book, and he was like the head guy, and he called me and my brother Steve in and said, "Hey, do you guys feel like you've paid your dues here long enough?" And we just started laughing and said, "Yeah, I mean, we knew our job. We weren't there to say, well, I should be getting a push and I should be winning." And we knew what we signed up for. So now let's just go to work, do the best job we can in the ring, try to tear the house. Look, our goal was all, whether we were losing, which we were, the goal was to walk out there, tear the house down, and literally go, okay, follow that. And that was our goal every time we got in the ring. And so Kevin Nash gave us that acknowledgement and said, we see what you guys do, and we appreciate the heart. And he said, would you be you about ready to sign a contract? And we both just, you couldn't wipe the smiles off our faces. We said yes. And so we were there for a couple more years, and then Terry Taylor was the realist. Terry Taylor called me at home after I did a TV. He called me and said, "Hey, Scotty, so here's the deal. Your contract is up in a few months." I just told Terry this story too, not too long ago. He said, "Your contract is up in a few months, so I'm going to give you a few choices." Terry Taylor had just come in as the boss, and he said, "You can come in, you can keep coming every week, and we'll just beat you on TV and pay you out your contract, or you can sit at home until your contract runs out, and we can send you your entire rest of your contract in one lump sum, or you can sit at home and we can just keep paying you as we have been." I think it was every 2 weeks at the time. It was Ted Turner organization. And so I think it was every 2 weeks. Well, I can tell you this, Mike, any wrestler in the business will tell you the first thing you don't need to do for me is send me one big, huge chunk of money. Because when you do, I'm going to blow the devil out of it. I'm not the money guy in my family. My wife, God bless her heart, she has taken care of me. And so, and she takes care of all the money and has for 35 years. And so I don't get in the way of that. And so I told him, I said, "Well, Terry, if it's all good with you, I will sit at home until my contract runs out, but I'll let you keep paying me every 2 weeks." And he said, "Okay, well, hey, look, you know the deal. You think about changing your look and changing everything, and why don't you try calling, WWE?" It was WWF, I think, at the time. And my brother was already there. And I said, "All right, Terry, thank you for everything. I really appreciate it." And I'd known Terry a very long time too. So anyway, we went our separate ways, and I stayed home. Well, during that time, I bleached my hair. I mean, white, cotton top. I was just trying to change my look as much as possible. And I had just turned 40 years old. So that's kind of in your head too. They don't start putting 40-year-olds on camera, they take them away from the camera. And so, but I wasn't going to stop. I wasn't going to quit. And so, lo and behold, at the end of, I think it was like 3 or 4 months is how long I sat at home until my contract ran out. And lo and behold, Nick Patrick calls me and he says, "Scotty, they're looking for referees and your name came up." And I went, "Oh, no, Nick. I mean, literally, this was like right at the end of Nitro on a Monday night. It had just gone off the air. I had just watched it. Lay down in the bed, and the phone rings. And it's Nick. And he says, "Yeah, they're looking for refs." And I go, "No, Nick, I'm a wrestler, dude. I don't want to referee." And he says, "Scotty, your name came up. That's what I'm telling you, man. You need to call Terry Taylor." And I went, yeah, dude. He goes, you still think you got some miles in the tank? And I said, I do. And he said, all right, well, I respect that. He said, but I would tell you to think about it. And I said, okay, well, I appreciate it. Well, how do you lay down in your bed knowing you don't have a job anymore already? Your last check is coming in a week or so. Um, you got two kids, you're 40 years old, and here's an opportunity to stay in the business you love and literally try a whole different avenue than what you've always done. Still kind of the same, but very different.
Yeah.
And I just thought, and of course, I laid there wide awake. My wife heard the phone ring, so she woke up. So we literally talked all through the night. And the next morning, she said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I guess I'll call Terry. And Terry said, okay, yeah, great. Hey, thanks, Scotty. Awesome. I'm glad. So come to Vegas. And it was some pay-per-view in Vegas. And it was like the match they gave me was like a Falls Count Anywhere in the Building match or whatever. And I want to say a Halloween Havoc, maybe. I'm not sure what it was exactly, but it was a pay-per-view, and it was one of those matches where the guys fight all over the building.
Yeah.
So here I am. I had been training so hard, and I'd gained weight, and my hair is cotton top, and there I am looking totally different than when I was a wrestler with a referee shirt on. And I came back after the match, and I look around, and Nick said, hey, that was good, Nick Patrick. That was good, Scott. You did good, man. And I said, yeah, I didn't really do anything. He said, yeah, that's what those matches are all about. He said, it's kind of why we put you in it, so that you could get the feel. And I said, okay. And I said, where's Terry Taylor? And he said, he's out there in the truck producing the show. And I went, yeah, I need to talk to him. He goes, yeah, no, Scott, he's in the truck. He's producing the show right now. And I said, Nick, I cannot go lay my head on my pillow next to my wife and know whether I have the job or whether I don't have the job. And he goes, okay. And I literally walked up the steps of that truck and opened the door. I don't, everybody can't identify, I know, but in those trucks, it's just pitch black except TV screens. And I opened that door, and it just, you're in Vegas, and it's different time zones. So it's night here, but it's early in the day there. And I opened that thing, and the sunlight lit the place up, and everybody like they're vampires. Oh, God. And I step in there, and Terry Taylor went, what is it? And I said, well, do I have the job or do I have the job? I said, I can't go home and lay my head on my pillow. And he goes, you got the job, but you got to do a couple of things. He said, you got to slim back down, and you got to get rid of that hair. Oh, my God. I just started laughing, and I said, thanks, Terry. And so that literally started my refereeing career on the big time. You know what I mean? As I say big time, but 9 months later, the whole company ends up selling to Vince, and I didn't get picked up. So I had 9 months of being a referee with WCW, and dude, what fun. I mean, so after the end of my wrestling for WCW, I ended up going home, a few months of getting paid, and then coming back, but as a referee for 9 more months. So, happy ending, and it opened me up to a whole another career at the end. When people nowadays, like I went to WrestleCon, and at WrestleCon, only a couple of people came up and said, I remember when you wrestled, because people don't remember that. I wrestled 22 years, and people don't remember that. All they remember is the referee. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
Yeah. And on the next episode, we're going to have you tell the story of WrestleCon.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That was a blast. I had a great time.
So, because really, like me and you've said, WrestleCon is really what kickstarted this. I mean,
yes.
it's what
yes.
led all this is because of WrestleCon. So that's gonna be fun. But no, I think in this episode we kind of got our feet wet into what this podcast is gonna be. I think.
Well, I
think people are gonna enjoy it.
I appreciate having the opportunity to tell my stories, man. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun business.
I can see it, and the listeners, when they listen to the audio, they're not going to be able to see it, but I think they're going to be able to hear the excitement and the joy you're having going back in time and going, man, these are things I haven't thought about in a long time, or
Yeah.
just the memories, man. And
Yeah.
I see it light up in your face and your facial expressions, and it brings joy to me, and I hope it brings joy to everybody else, man.
I hope so
Um,
too, man. Hey, don't forget, book scottarmstrong.com if you want me to do a seminar or come to your event, or better yet, book scottarmstrong.com to come to your house and make you my biscuits. My world famous biscuits. They're awesome.
so how
Ask
do
my
I
brother.
so
Ask my brother.
how is your as your co-host, do I get to get these biscuits?
Yeah, I got to bring you down to Pensacola, man. Uh,
Well, I just came back from the Gulf, and I think I've told you this, but my wife and I, we love it. We go there every year, and we're going to be back soon. So I may just come to Pensacola this time.
Yeah, dude, it's worth the ride. Look at me. I'm as dark as I've ever been. Just hanging out outside. I'm gonna tell you something. My grass mower. That dude is hot, muscled up, good looking. Oh, wait a minute, that's me. Yeah, I mow the grass. I wash the car. I'm the typical. My buddy across the street said, "Are you retired now?" And I said, "Oh, don't even say that, man. My wife, she gets hot just hearing that." uh,
That's awesome. That's
anyway, Big
awesome.
Mike, thank you so much, man. This has been a blast, and I look forward to the next episode.
Yes, sir. So as always, man, what I like to do when we finish the podcast, you can find me on Twitter at Big Mike the host. You can find Scott on Twitter at WWE Armstrong. You can follow the podcast at Armstrong Av Pod. That's Armstrong AVE Pod on Twitter. Follow us. We're going to keep you guys updated on what we're doing, because
Awesome.
there might be a possibility that you might be able to come see me and Scott in person in Nashville, Tennessee, SummerSlam weekend.
Oh, it'd be a blast.
We
And
might be able to get that going.
if you decide you want to sponsor the podcast, holla,
Yeah, if you
holla,
are
holla.
a if you are a business owner and you want to put some money towards this, we will plug you every chance we get.
Yes.
But
Uh,
thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Scott, for coming on here and being as open as you have been to me and my idea that I brought to you. And we'll just discuss that further in the next episode. But man,
Sounds
thank
great,
you.
dude. I look
Thank
forward
you.
to it. Thank you, man.
Yep. You guys, thank y'all. We're gonna get out of here.